Hey guys, what's up? It's Chris with Drone Pro Academy, and we're here at Fisher Towers. Super incredible natural kind of rock towers here in Utah, and they're not a national park, they're not a state park, so you can actually film here. It's BLM land, so it's awesome. We're away from the parking lot a little bit so we don't bother people, and we're using the Mavic 2, and I'm going to teach you some tricks to get the best possible outcome from flying the Mavic 2. It's a single operator drone, which limits you a little bit as far as being able to get some really dynamic shots, but it's got some features built into it that allow you to get those shots much easier. So super impressed with this little guy. This is the Hasselblad version. There's also a zoom version, so the camera zooms on it. You get some really cool parallaxing movement. The Hasselblad camera takes amazing video and amazing photos, like absolutely amazing. It's super portable, super small. It's got sensors all over it, and it's totally awesome. But let's get started. All right, so just a little tip. It's really hard to see your iPhone with these controllers. They do have another version you can buy. It's like 700 bucks for this kind of complete unit that has the screen built in and everything. It's really nice. But if you don't have that, you're just using your phone, you can get a sunshade for your phone that actually works with this setup. And that's really nice because in the bright light, it's really hard to see your phone. And you want to be able to see it so you stay safe, you know you're getting a good shot, check exposure, all that stuff. So this is on Amazon. I'll have a link to it. It's really cheap. Definitely a good thing to buy for it. All right guys, so I'm just going to walk through the kind of the basic settings for the Mavic. These kind of apply to all drones. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our settings here. We're going to tap on the bottom. There's an M, a bunch of settings. First of all, make sure we're in video mode. We're going to go ahead and shoot video. It's just above the record button there, as you can see. And we're going to tap that. And this is where kind of all of our settings are. So on the fly, you can adjust exposure. It's really nice. You got your ISO, your aperture, and your shutter. Now, first thing, you want to make sure that you're in manual mode. As you can see on top, I got the M highlighted. You got aperture priority, shutter priority, and then auto. And you want to make sure in manual, because what happens is if you're flying over a rock and you are coming in wide and you come in close to it and all of a sudden it gets really shadowy, your exposure is going to change, your colors are going to change, and you're not going to get a very consistent shot. So we want to make sure that we keep that on manual. Okay, so the ISO is the last thing that you want to change. So we're going to go ahead and take that and we're going to drag that down to 100. So 100 is going to give you the cleanest image. We want to keep it there, especially in bright daylight. Always have that thing low. So the next thing we're going to do is adjust our aperture. And you've got this little dial here. And what this does, it changes the aperture inside of the camera. So the higher aperture we have, the more closed that's going to be. And it's going to make everything in focus. So the higher that number is, the more everything is going to be in focus. So I usually like to keep this, usually the sharpest is around like 5.6 or so. 5.6 to like 10. So for daylight shooting. So we're going to go ahead and just bring it to 5.6. And then our shutter is our last thing. So if you have an ND filter, you can pop an ND filter on there and shoot it a 50th of a shutter. If you're shooting at 24 frames per second, that's going to give you nice motion blur. That looks really cinematic, it looks really pleasing. I don't have an ND. So what I usually do is I'll just crank the shutter, or I'm going to bring it down. So you can see I'm bringing it down, and you can see the little bar, it says M.M. That's our kind of exposure meter. I'm going to bring that down until our exposure looks good. Now you always want to look at the sky. So I'm going to tilt up. As you notice, I have my settings really slow. I'll go through my settings in a little bit. But you want to look at the sky. If it's a blue sky, you don't want to blow it out. But you want to have good exposure. You can always adjust this once you get into the air as well. So you just want to make sure that you turn that feature on as well, which is the histogram. So let's go through that right now. Okay, so as far as settings go here, you want to make sure that you've got, I like to shoot in RAW for my panoramics, my hyperlapses. Histogram's turned on, overexposed turned on. So as you can see there, that makes the sky kind of very obvious that you're overexposed. Now if it's a white cloud, I'm totally fine with that being blown out, right? Because a cloud is what color? It's white, right? So I'm fine with that. So you can kind of just use that to kind of gauge, but in theory, it's always better to lower your exposure and shoot a little bit darker than it is to go overboard, because it's a lot easier to bring up the dark spots than it is to bring down the overexposed. So just always watch out for that. Those are the settings there. Now I'm going to take you into some other settings. So I'm going to tap on the top right here, and here I'm going to start like a new video right now. Okay. All right guys, now I'm going to go through the settings to get the smoothest footage. And I'll just kind of show you how I have my stuff set up. So if you scroll down here, let's see, I need to find out where it's at. Never remember. HD, transmission quality. So we're gonna go down to the gimbal settings. Tap that. And then you have your pitch speed and your pitch smoothness. I've got mine set to 4 for my pitch speed, which is really slow. As you can see, if you kind of use this button on the side here, it goes really, really slow. I got my gimbal pitch smoothness at 15. And I just messed around with those settings till I found something that I liked. And it just gives you the ability to like not really mess up that tilt. The tilt is so important. If you can just make it so you can just barely touch it and it just gives you a perfectly smooth shot, then you're not gonna mess up shots as often. So those are my settings for that. And then I think we're ready to start flying. Let's do it.